mistake-laden episode of We Only Look Thin. I am Katherine Weigel, a happy accident who's lost 145 pounds. And
what does that mean?
Bob Ross always used to be like, oh, it's not a mistake, it's a happy
accident.
Oh,
yeah, okay.
So, I don't know. And with me today is...
Another happy accident, Donald Weigel.
I think I was planned. I think you were planned.
Yeah, I don't know if I was planned. My parents were so young, but whatever. We happily accidentally got married a long time ago.
Yay. Wait, did I even say that this was We Only Look Thin?
I don't think so. Welcome to We Only Look Thin.
Welcome to We Only Look Thin. I am Katherine Weigel. I've lost 145 pounds.
And I have lost about 100 pounds.
And we've kept it off for over 3 years.
Yes, we have.
That is not a mistake.
No, we've done that on purpose. But we accidentally got married a bunch of years ago. We enabled each other's bad behavior accidentally
Good
for a really long
times.
time.
We sure did.
And then we got it together, and we're here to tell you about it.
Yeah. And
it was just that simple.
If you recall, last week we talked about mistakes in your weight loss journeys, and today we are going to finish up that list with the final 7.
Yes, indeed. We found an article on healthline.com by Franziska Spritzler, and it's entitled 15 Common Weight Loss Mistakes. We went through the first 8 of them last week. We put our own personal spin on them, and we're going to go through the final 7 this week.
Yeah.
And also, before we get into that, though, I wanted to welcome anybody who is here as a result of our recent Reddit AMA on the R Lose It group. Thank you so much for hosting us, R Lose It, and we think it went well. We talked about it last week.
But now it's actually happened. Although it'll have been a week ago by the time you get this. It's like the whole time travel story situation where things have happened, and now we're talking about them as if they're in the past, and now they are in the past, and it's all been great. Yeah. Speaking of great, 2021's been a great year. Nothing's happened. There's no interesting things in the news.
Exactly.
It's just so boring. So you've taken that time out of your busy, boring schedule to listen to this podcast, and we really appreciate it because nothing else is happening in the world.
Yes, indeed.
That was sarcasm.
Yes, indeed. So next week, we're going to actually do an episode where we talk about what we talked about on the Reddit AMA, answer some of the questions that we were asked in podcast form, because that's talking is kind of what we do. The typing part of the Reddit AMA is
oh my gosh,
hard for me. Not that I'm a terrible typist, but it's so much slower than it is just saying things out loud.
I sat for 3.5 hours and didn't eat or drink anything. It was actually amazing. I get so engrossed in it and love answering questions and engaging with people. So it's always kind of magical when I have those moments where I forget about food, because it rarely ever happens.
Yeah, and I did not forget to eat. I paused and made lunch in the middle of it.
And I judged him terribly for it. No, it was fine.
Yes, she usually does.
Yeah. So let's see. What else do we have to talk about?
I think we have to talk about weight loss mistakes that people make. Part 2 of it.
Part 2.
And as we get into this list, just like we mentioned the last time, just because there may be 1 or 2 things on this list that don't resonate with you or that you completely disagree with doesn't mean you should toss out the entire list. There are a couple of things on this list that have had little to no bearing on my weight loss success at all. And we're going to talk about those anyway. We're going to, maybe they will resonate with you, even if they don't resonate with us. We're going to give you our spin on them, our opinion. But just as we've said, sometimes we have a tendency to, if we hear one thing on a list that we don't like, we chuck out the whole thing. Yeah. But try and take the parts of this that really resonate with you. And you don't have to adjust all, 7 of these things, or if you listened to last week, all 15. You don't have to adjust them all right now, but take what you like, go week to week, go step by step. And I think it's important to learn from your mistakes. We made weight loss mistakes for many, many years, most of our adult lives. And I was 45 years old before I even began getting on the right path.
Yeah. And you know what I think the fun thing about this podcast is?
No.
We differ on our opinions on some of these
as
well.
Yeah, we do.
I have some opinions I haven't even told you about because I want to save it and shock you for the episode.
Yeah,
so,
I'm looking forward to being shocked.
That's what I like.
But I think too, the great thing about us is that okay, seriously, let's get serious. Bro.
Okay, bro, we're getting serious.
Is that Donald and I don't do the same thing. So just because he has a wrong opinion about something doesn't mean that it isn't right for him. It's great. It's super for him.
Yeah, exactly. I have so many wrong opinions.
No, but we spent so many years worrying about the opinions of others. The only way you can do it is if you and we'll get into that as the list of 7 unfold. But really watch out for those ultimatum. If you don't, then you're never going to make it work for you. See what resonates and go from there, like Donald said.
Yes, indeed. And speaking of things that we don't entirely agree with, we're going to start with an item on this list that I do not really agree with. And the author says, weight loss mistake people make is not eating whole, single ingredient foods. And I have to tell you,
here it comes. Here comes the pain train.
I eat some whole single ingredient foods for sure. I eat a lot of carrot sticks. I eat a lot of, cherry tomatoes, but I do not worry about that. And in fact, there have been so many times in my life where somebody has told me I had to eat those things, and I was so disgusted and so miserable just eating whole single ingredient foods that I went completely rebel and went off of the diet completely to get revenge, so to speak, because I was so miserable just eating those foods.
Well, and I think too, when I was in Weight Watchers, they talked about eating foods at the outside edges of the grocery store. So only sticking to dairy, produce, and, meat, poultry, that kind of thing.
Right.
And never enter the middle of the grocery store as though it was lava. Like, you're never going to lose weight if you go down the, Rice-A-Roni aisle.
Right.
And getting into a position where you feel like I'm doing it wrong if I eat packaged foods. I'm doing it wrong if I go to restaurants. Our friend of the show, friend of friends, Nicole, ate nothing but Buffalo Wild Wings and Pizzeria Uno and beer.
And drinks beer and managed to lose over 100 pounds, right?
Yeah, but if you're in a position where eating whole foods is not realistic for your budget, for your time, for your energy, and for your interest, do not worry about it. I think we can feel less than if we don't, live up to some standard of an influencer who has a very different lifestyle than we do. And for us, Donald and I grew up on packaged food, Chef Boyardee, kind of middle class foods, and eating whole foods when you're working full time, when you're managing kids, when you're, super busy is really hard. It's a hard thing to achieve. So don't hold yourself to that standard. We have done some episodes about pumping up the volume.
Pump up the volume.
Where we talk about taking those instant foods, those, frozen foods, and pumping up the volume with vegetables or salsa or, other foods that are maybe a whole food.
Yeah.
I'm in air quotes again because I can't stop doing that. But it's okay, I can't go to the farmer's market and harvest my own grain and beat my own wheat and whatever. And
right.
That's fine.
Because that's what you do. You beat your wheat.
You beat your wheat. Oh, wheat beater? No one has ever said that.
No, I don't think beating wheat is in the process at all, but we're going to go with it.
No, but you see somebody I don't want to say Gwyneth Paltrow, but I'll say Gwyneth Paltrow, who's I eat macrobiotic. If you only eat local, that's all you can do. I'm not that person. I get my frozen, brown rice from Trader Joe's. It's fine. That's what I can do. And that's the time that I have in this season of my life.
Yeah, I probably eat 80 to 90% what would be considered packaged processed foods. I eat a lot of, veggie burgers, veggie hot dogs, all those sorts of things.
Veggies.
Veggies, exactly. But now, in fairness, though, and I think, to the author's point, I do find that when I eat quote unquote real food, if during the early parts of the day, I try and stick to things like cottage cheese and Greek yogurt and fruit and, high protein foods that I consider real foods. And I save my snacky treaty foods for later in the day, because once I start eating a chips or a candy bar or something like that, I find it really hard to stop. And so
I do try and stick to those, quote unquote, real foods earlier in the day.
Well, and for me, it's more about satiety because Donald and I eat very differently. If all you can manage is a frozen Jimmy Dean breakfast sandwich,
right?
And that satisfies you, that's fine. Eat the Jimmy Dean. But if you find that you're hungry 20 minutes later, then maybe supplementing that with some veggies for breakfast, which is something that I do now. But I don't make my own, I don't grow my own Brussels sprouts. I buy the Brussels sprouts in the package from Trader Joe's, throw it in the microwave for 20 seconds. And that's as much whole food as I can manage.
Yeah. And I eat a lot of cauliflower and I, get the pre-chopped, microwave right in the bag kind because it eliminates that barrier to me eating it. I pop it in the microwave and then there it is. It's ready to go. And I don't have to do anything other than push a couple of buttons. And it helps me to eat that whole food, which has been chopped. Is a whole food still whole when it's been chopped?
I don't know. That's why you only eat cherry tomatoes, is because it's a whole food in your mouth. You don't have to chop the tomatoes.
That's right.
You're taking this seriously.
When I'm biting the cherry tomatoes, are they no longer whole foods?
Oh my gosh. Yeah. So much navel gazing. But also I've seen those things where the ideal diet plan is don't eat any foods with more than 5 ingredients. It's some magical force field that you go through. And it's sure, I had this is a fun anecdote. A fun aside.
I like fun.
Here we go. I was testing out some shelf-stable foods for our earthquake emergency kit because we live in Los Angeles. And I had a Chef Boyardee little cup. It was 90 calories, 100 calories, but it had a lot of sugar in it.
Yeah.
And it's not the Chef Boyardee that is the problem. It's that added sugar made me really afterward. That sound is what I make.
What that translates into is it made her want to eat a lot more sugar.
Yeah. So for me, having a canned vegetable soup, oh my gosh, there's so much sodium. My problem is not the sodium.
Yeah,
it's
exactly.
the snackiness that follows. So I can have a can of tomato soup and maybe throw in some actual vegetables into it and pump up the volume. But watch your hunger signals. Watch how food makes you feel. There is nothing magical. There are no food police that are going to see that you're not eating whole foods and they're coming to ruin everything. Just see where you are right now. Maybe a whole food means that you get a rotisserie chicken at the grocery store. Maybe it means you get canned vegetables or bagged vegetables.
Yeah.
I don't even chop my own salad. I can't deal with that. That's too much information.
Yeah.
I buy it packaged and ready to go. And sometimes that's even too hard. I just not even open the package? It's too hard.
Yeah. And so I have lost 100 pounds by eating a lot of convenience food, which doesn't mean eat nothing but junk, but it is possible to do that and still lose weight. But I think the bottom line here is that you'll have to make this decision for yourself. If you find that eating these convenience foods, these packaged foods, is just making it impossible for you to stick to a healthy eating plan, then maybe you do need to incorporate more of, single ingredient whole foods in your life. But it's going to be on a person by person basis.
Yeah. And I know Donald said on a final note, but I've got my own final note. So.
A not so final note.
And furthermore, but over the Christmas holiday break, when we weren't working, I was able to make many more whole food meals for the family because I wasn't working. And it was much easier. But I know myself well enough to say this is a particular period of time that it's easy to do that. I can, roast vegetables. I can, make bigger, more whole food meals. But back at work, it's much harder to do that. And it's okay to be inconsistent. Maybe one week you feel like you can do it all. And the next week, if it's overwhelming, don't worry about it. It doesn't mean you failed the plan. Just accommodate what you can do based on your current circumstances. And that's all we have to say on this topic.
And one final note on this topic, the actual final note. Moving on to the next item on the list. And this one, again, is one that has not really played any part in my joint venture, but it might in yours. And that is eating too much fat on a low-carb diet.
Yeah, I know we have a lot of different kinds of listeners and listeners on different plans. And so some of these suggestions and tips are not going to work for everyone. For us, a calorie deficit matters, but there was a time that I did do Atkins/keto and lost a lot of weight. And then I did stop losing a lot of weight. I wasn't tracking anything. And sometimes things just don't work anymore and you don't know why.
Yeah, keto Atkins worked great for me until it didn't. And, I lost like 50 pounds on it at one point in my life. And then I remembered I like pasta and bread and all those things. And it came roaring back. But I think that part of the author's point in this about the eating too much fat is that you're not really supposed to be counting anything on the plan other than your carbs. And so people can end up eating a lot more calories than they think they're getting. And it can result in a reduction in weight loss or even in weight gain if you're eating too much of these things.
So one of her main points is if you're adding large amounts of fat to your food or beverages and not losing weight, you may want to cut back on the fat. Like I know that there's the bulletproof coffee, which is you add coconut oil or something to your coffee and blend it up.
Yeah, I don't know.
And it's supposed to improve satiety. And I think for me, satiety really does matter. But if the scale stops moving, you need to change something. And if you don't want to change something, then you'll get the same results. So for us being scientists and experimenting with our plans, when I am tracking calories and I stop losing weight, I have to decide what I want to change. Do I need to move more or do I need to eat less? There's a balance there. So whatever plan you're following, if you stop losing weight, you may need to be in a position where you're willing to change what you're doing. Fat has a lot of delicious calories. You might want to cut back on that. But again, it's not something that we follow in our plan right now.
Yeah, we essentially just count calories. But the next thing on the list is eating too often, even when you're not hungry. Yeah. And I don't think for me that this is a giant problem because I'm always hungry.
Well, but I do think that there, and again, with the only eat whole foods, don't feed a gremlin after midnight, those kinds of things. There are people who are like, you got to eat every 2 hours. You got to The only way to lose weight is to do it this way. So for Donald and I, we have different eating plans. And for him, he is much more regimented in his timing of eating. And the thing is, see what works for you. If a plan is saying eat every 2 hours, whether you're hungry or not, if that doesn't work for you, don't do it. If you're not losing weight, switch to something else. Donald eats much later in the day, doesn't he?
I do. In fact, one of the things I wanted to point out, the author points out, she links to 2 different studies that show that the recommendation to eat breakfast every morning, regardless of appetite, also appears to be misguided. That's a direct quote from the article. And then there's another study that says one study found that when people skipped breakfast, they took in more calories at lunch than they'd eaten in the morning meal. However, they consumed an average of 408 fewer calories for the day overall, meaning that when they skipped breakfast, they ate a bigger lunch, sure, but then throughout the whole day, they ended up eating a smaller number of calories. And that is the strategy that I use. I did a lot of experimenting on this and discovered that I was the least hungry in the morning. And so skipping lunch or skipping breakfast in the morning allowed me to have more calories later in the day when I really felt like I needed it because I was so hungry then. And that really has worked well for me.
Well, and as a kid, we get so many different messages about, breakfast is the most important meal of the day.
Right.
And and I'm joking about the gremlin thing about don't get wet, don't, eat after midnight. But we hear these rules and we take them as gospel, but being in a position as a grown-up adult to see what works for you really matters. There are some mornings where I am starving. Like earlier this week, I was really, really hungry, and usually I try to eat later. I was like, all right, you know what? I'm going to have some breakfast. I'm going to kind of stick to vegetables and protein. If I'm really hungry, then that will be fine. If I'm going like, oh, I really want a Danish right now on a random Wednesday, like that's not really hungry. That's I'm hungry for a sweet. But for me, I'm flexible. There are times like yesterday, I didn't eat until 3 o'clock in the afternoon. I'm like, I'm fixed forever. I'm never going to be hungry again.
Yeah.
I finally cracked the code. But then other days I wake up at 8 a.m. and if I've eaten less the day before, I might be more hungry. So really look at your hunger cues, really decide what works for you. What works for Donald does not necessarily always work for me. And I know that I'm not the same person every day. There are sometimes I'm going to be more hungry, other times where I can wait, and it's okay to be flexible. I think this ties into the intermittent fasting window too. There are some people who think that it is magical. It's just a shorter eating window. I am confident that if I just did intermittent fasting, I would eat as much as possible. Like that supermarket sweep game. I would shout, like, I'm not losing weight. What's wrong with me? Like, be like, just I dare
when
you.
People give themselves cheat days. It's like
cheat days.
I could destroy an entire month's worth of progress in a day if I just let myself eat whatever I wanted for a whole day.
See, it doesn't work. So just see what works for you. Follow your hunger cues. And, some things work in different seasons and they don't work in others. And that's okay.
Yeah, and one sort of final note. Haha, I get the final note.
Oh, man. I actually don't have anything else to say on this topic, so you're welcome to take this one.
I do try and eat at regular intervals in the afternoon, like basically every hour on the hour. But there are times when I don't feel super hungry. It doesn't happen that often, but I enjoy skipping one of my snacks and then having 2 snacks later. But eventually I do end up eating the same amount of calories because I have found, for me, being consistent with the number of calories that I eat every day seems to really help me lose weight.
Yeah. Guess what? Fun fact. I actually have something more to say.
Oh, boy.
It's from
Shocker,
the article.
Everybody.
It's from the article. It's not me. It's her. Okay. I'm reading from the beyond.
All right.
She also says letting yourself get too hungry is also a bad idea.
Oh, yeah.
It is better to eat a snack than become ravenously hungry, which causes you to make poor food decisions. This came up yesterday. We went out, and sometimes I used to be like, well, I just won't eat, and I'm out and I'm busy.
Oh, such a bad idea. Or like on Thanksgiving, we've talked about, that like you don't eat all day so that you can really tank up for Thanksgiving dinner. And like, that's always a bad idea.
No, but leaving the house without, I keep a bag of cashews or pistachios in my glove box in my car. And if you go out and you're like, I'm starving, I'm shocked, I'm 46 years old and I'm surprised that I eat food. Like, that is not okay. It's not okay to put yourself in a position where you don't have something handy. Now, I used to be ravenously hungry, be shocked about it, and then get a bag of chips or 5 when I would go to Target and be like, wow, I'm really hungry. I just got to eat something. Or, oh, look, there's a Kentucky Fried Chicken. I should just stop because I'm so hungry. I'm so shocked at my own biological needs.
That like, not planning so that you had a good excuse to eat the KFC.
Which I totally used to do. So being in a position where you know yourself well enough to take something that is not a trigger food, not something that you can't moderate. But for me, a little bag of cashews, it's fine. It's good food, and it holds me over until I'm back at home. So don't let yourself get too hungry, and that is all we have to say.
And one final note about that one. So the next item on the list of weight loss mistakes, and this one is one of the ones where the rubber really meets the road, is having unrealistic expectations. And I did this for so long. I would have this expectation that I would go on a diet plan, and 2 months later I would be down 100 pounds, and I would, then just live happily ever after.
Right.
And
I'd be done.
Exactly. It would be over. I'd be finished. And like, there is no finishing. And it is okay. Not only is it okay, I really, truly believe it is much, much better to lose weight slowly than quickly. And I know people hate that. They want it off. They want it off fast. But if you do it in a slow fashion, you're doing it in a sustainable fashion. And it's something that you can keep doing for the rest of your life.
Well, and 2, to focus on the number on the scale is a really dangerous pattern to build for yourself. Because like Donald said, there's always the week 1, week 2 of a diet plan, I'm in air quotes, and you lose 5 pounds. And some of that's water weight, some of it's just kind of shocking your body. And then I used to look at my calendar, be like, okay, 5 pounds a week, I'll be at my goal weight. And then I can just go back to whatever. And then I would, the week after that, maybe lose 1 pound. I go, okay, well, I'll adjust for this week. So if I lose 6 pounds next week, then I'll be able to keep on track. And it's this, I'm focusing on the end result, not the lifestyle that I'm living. And for me, the article talks about not looking at that big weight loss goal. I used to look at, okay, I need to lose 100 pounds divided by 10 months and it'll be over and it'll be done. This time around, I honestly looked, and I still do, looked at 5 pounds at a time. I can lose 5 pounds, get to that benchmark. Okay, can I lose another 5? Get to that benchmark. And it made all the difference this time, because when you're 100 pounds overweight, you don't know what, you don't even know what that person looks like or what they do. I know what it takes to lose 5 pounds. That is something that's within my control.
So much better. And the article quotes a study where researchers analyzed data from several weight loss center programs, and they reported that overweight and obese women who expected to lose the most weight were also the most likely to drop out of the program after 6 to 12 months. So having those unrealistic over goals really led them to stop altogether.
Well, and someone that I know recently said that they were working on an 18-month plan of weight loss.
Yeah.
And I used to do that. And it's like, I don't know if you've followed the news recently, but the last year and a half has been a little bonkers. I'll just say it. It's wackadoodle.
It's been wackadoodle. That's what everyone is saying.
Yeah. But who could have expected everything that has happened in the last 16 months to be what life is like? I can't imagine. Remember the simpler times when we thought murder hornets were coming?
I know.
Those were the good old salad days.
Exactly.
We just long for those simpler times. But I can look at the month ahead. What does the month ahead look like? Okay, it's winter. Our daughter's in school. That I can predict. I cannot imagine, based on the last 16 months, what the next 16 months looks like. But I can look at my current workload, the season, our life balance, and I can look in the short term. And I think that was something in Weight Watchers that I really liked, is that they said I think it was a 5% goal, was like, let's first look at that. And once you get to there, we can look at the next 5%.
Yeah.
For me, I went even smaller at the time and just did 5 pounds. Like a percentage, I don't know if math is a real thing, but 5 pounds, 5 pounds.
I don't believe math exists.
Weight is a human construct.
Yeah.
Ugh. On the moon, I'd only weigh 7 pounds.
Oh my goodness. I used to love going to the planetarium or whatever, and you'd stand on those scales and be like, yeah.
If only I lived on Jupiter.
Exactly.
And expectations from weight also go into expectations for exercise. Like we say with food and with movement and with your weight, be flexible, have some minimums. And it's great if you have a perfect week where you're, able to work out every day, but don't have an unrealistic expectations that you'll keep it up every single day of the year, because life happens and it gets in the way. And that's just part of the process. Oh no, it's my time of the month. I am so shocked. It happens every month.
Yeah.
Stop being surprised about the weight gain. It's okay.
Yeah. And as far as expecting to lose weight super quickly, imagine, what is the alternative? If you lose the weight slowly in a sustainable fashion, eventually you lose it. If you try and lose it quickly and get disappointed and stop, you don't ever lose it.
Yeah.
So it is this giant catch-22 that I don't think people really think about hard enough. And it was a huge mental breakthrough for me when I was like, I could lose the weight slowly and then I would actually lose it.
Yeah. And guess what? We've been maintaining our weight loss for 3.5 years.
Yeah.
Not doing anything different. Still tracking everything.
No,
it's just living our lives. Nobody compliments us.
It's the same things over and over again, which is both depressing and reassuring.
Yeah, no, it's both. And speaking of depressing and reassuring, the next thing that we're going to talk about might be the most divisive and groundbreaking difference in our marriage that I
have no idea why this is a divisive topic.
Right.
The next weight loss mistake on the list is still drinking your sugar. And the author's point here is that many people cut out soda in order to lose weight. But then they continue to drink fruit juice, which has as much or
juice
more
cleanse.
Sugar than soda. She says here, 12 ounces of unsweetened apple juice contains 36 grams of sugar, which is even more than what's in 12 ounces of cola. And then she goes on to say what's even more is that liquid calories don't seem to affect the appetite centers of your brain in the same way that certain solid form foods do. Studies show that you end up consuming more calories overall instead of compensating for the liquid calories by eating less later in the day. And she quotes a couple of studies here. So in other words, if you are drinking fruit juice or drinking sugar, drinking your calories in general, like you have that 100, 200, 300 calories, then you don't eat less because the liquid calories aren't satisfying you in a way. And I am a big proponent of this. And now Catherine is about to shoot holes all over it.
Pew, pew, pew. No, I definitely limit my sugary drinks. I feel like it is one of those low-hanging fruit.
Wow.
It's one of those things where it's like, oh no, I'm doing everything right. What can I do? It's like, well, would it kill you not to have orange juice in the morning? Because that's like one small cup is 120 calories.
Yeah.
Like there right off the bat, it's a small way to eliminate some calories that don't actually take away from your satiety. Now, for me, I prioritize having half and half in my coffee every day. I buck the system by having calories in my drink every single day. And for me, it is worth it. Coffee is a lifestyle for me. I identify as a coffee drinker. I've tried going with no fat, low cal, whatever, but I really enjoy the 100 calories a day that I have with my half and half. And it doesn't ruin my intermittent fasting window. It doesn't ruin my day. It's just something that I prioritize. And for me, it's worth it. Now, the rest of the day, I'll have black tea. I'll have what we call soda, which is actually just sparkling water.
Yeah, right.
We've tricked our daughter into thinking it's soda.
Yeah, exactly. It's all the no-calorie sparkling waters are soda.
Yeah. And we'll have a glass of beer on the weekend or a glass of wine.
Yeah, and I'll have a Coca-Cola every once in a while. I'm not saying if you love something to avoid it altogether. I think that the point here though is that just because it's not a soda, just because it has vitamins in it, doesn't mean it is low calorie. And continuing to always drink those calories would really be difficult for me. If I was drinking 200 or 300 calories every day, I would be so hard pressed to stick to my calorie goal because I would be so much hungrier than I get right now.
Well, and two, back to that sugar thing, when I start having sugar, I keep wanting to have sugar. And apple juice and orange juice and those Frappuccino drinks or whatever, it's basically dessert. And there are a lot of times where I will have, say, a hot chocolate for dessert, not for breakfast, because it's not, it feels like a sweet treat to me. And like Donald said, we try to save those sweet treats for the evening. But if you can cut out, day after day, I know we did an episode called You Can't Fight Math. If you're having 100 to 200 calories a day of orange juice or some fruit juice or whatever, times 365 days, that's a lot of calories over the year that you can just go you know what? I'll cut it back to just on Saturdays.
Yeah.
And I can still have it in my life, but it's a special Saturday treat. And then you're reducing a lot of calories that don't take you very far.
Absolutely, for sure. All right, we're in the home stretch, everybody. We are on number 6 out of 7. The next weight loss mistake people make is not reading labels. And we have done a few different episodes about this. And a lot of what this means, what the author is talking about, we did an episode called Hungry Eyes, which is all about looking at foods and thinking that they are super healthy for you because they have catchphrases on them like ancient grains or farm to table. But
Skinny.
You're not actually looking at what's in them or how many calories. It doesn't matter if something is organically grown in terms of how many calories it has. You have to be mindful of what you're taking in and what you're burning.
Non-GMO. I can just eat all of it.
Exactly.
And to that point, we've done some studies on this before, studies as though we're scientists in lab coats. I did a study at Ralph's with 1 bag of chocolate hummus. But like, it's like, oh, it's chocolate hummus. It must just be so healthful.
Yeah, it's got hummus in the title.
But we do this thing on Facebook where it's like, guess the calories, guess the quantity or whatever. And it's like, oh, chocolate hummus. It's amazing. It's still 90 calories a tablespoon, which is basically the same as a Lindor truffle. Like, just because it says hummus doesn't mean it's necessarily healthy. Another thing that we look at is those like snack size bags of potato chips or nuts that they have at the cash registers, or when movies were a thing that you went to in the world, a bag of candy, it's a single serving whatever. It turns out it's like 100 calories, it says in big letters on the outside. It says 25 servings per container.
Right, exactly. and even those like single serve bags of chips that you just mentioned, I buy the ones that are roughly 150 calories a piece, but they have single serve bags that are double that, that end up being around 300 calories, and they still look like a single serve bag, but you really have to like look at the label and make sure of what you're getting.
Oh, and it's all that marketing stuff. It's like, okay, here is a mini quiche. It has 3.5 servings per container. Who's going to portion out 3.5 servings?
Yeah, for sure.
We definitely see a bag as a portion, a box as a portion. So for us, limiting our treat sizes, getting the lunch bag snack size matters to us in keeping our portions small, because if I see a bag at the checkout, there's a very good chance, even after all this time, that I'm just going to eat the whole thing. I have to know that. Like, if you pick this up, you might eat the whole thing. Like, because that's what you do.
And to quote the author of the article, Franziska Spritzler, I just like saying that. She says, unfortunately, many foods are labeled with healthy-sounding food claims on the front of the package. These may give you a false sense of security about choosing a certain item. And she references 2 different studies which show that people oftentimes, when they hear health claims or read health claims on the front of a package, think that what they're getting is going to help them lose weight.
No, and definitely those, if the package has to tell you how you're going to feel, it's probably trying to trick you somehow. And just because something is, like Donald said, an ancient grain, a whole food, non-GMO, whatever, it doesn't mean agave syrup does not have the same amount of calories as sugar. Sure, it's a different resource. Maybe it's, ethically farmed. I don't know. Do they farm agave?
Sure. Ethically farm. I don't like
farm
those
raised
unethical agave farms.
But and we've said this before, but we had a friend who alerted us that agave still had calories. It was some what? They haven't told us. The government doesn't want us to know. And calories matter. And whether they're organic, whether they're a whole food, it all adds up. And I think the issue with those, the claims of the whole food, I'm eating healthy food, I'm only having avocado oil, why am I not losing weight? It's that in the end, for us, we understand that calories matter, and just stuffing ourselves with whole, ancient grain, skinny, smart, whatever, it doesn't mean that the calories don't still have an impact.
It sure doesn't. And we finally made it, everybody. We're at the final weight loss mistake on the list.
What is it going to be?
And this one, I will just preface this by saying we may make those of you into intuitive eating upset on this one. But I am a huge, huge fan of this. We've done some other episodes about it. People make the mistake of not tracking what they eat in any way.
Yep.
And I personally, if you're not tracking what you eat, I don't understand how you know what you're doing right and what you're doing wrong. Like, how do you set a benchmark to then make adjustments to your diet plan later on? And I started by just sort of tracking what I was eating. And it's one of the things I picked up from Weight Watchers that has really stuck with me. I don't do Weight Watchers, but tracking what I'm eating has been a crucial part of my weight loss success, and I do it to this day. And I started by just sort of tracking what I ate without putting any judgment on it, and figured out how many calories I was eating versus how many I was burning, and then I reduced that. And by tracking my calories every day, then I know what I'm doing. And I know when I go over a certain calorie mark that it's going to reflect negatively on the scale.
And I know when I stick to a certain calorie mark, that is going to reflect positively on the scale.
Well, and it's about data collection. As you're collecting data on steps, on your weight, on your calories, it matters because I can look back over the last 5 years and I know exactly what I was eating, how many steps I'm getting. It doesn't have to do with my emotions, which vacillate wildly, from day to day. And for me, it's just hard data. It's not an opinion. It's not, well, how does my body feel? And if you are an intuitive eater and it is working for you, that is amazing. For me, my ability to lie to myself is unlimited. It's amazing. I do such a great job of being like, well, I was so good.
Oh my goodness.
What does good mean? Like, it's not a good witch, bad witch. Like, it's just data. And I can look back at my December. Like, there are times I don't look at my past data and I'm like, I don't understand what's wrong. And then I look back and I'm like, oh, I overate every day for 3 weeks. That's why the scale isn't going down. Like, oh, I was eating more than, and it's just data that I can collect and look back on. It doesn't have to do with my opinion. When I did Atkins 20 years ago, I don't know how many calories I was eating.
No.
Like, oh, should I do Atkins again? What did you eat?
Yeah, I know. And like I, not to bag on Atkins or keto or any of that really, but I guess I'm about to. Like, I did it 2 different times. And the first time I lost a bunch of weight on it until I started eating carbs again. The second time I did it again and I thought I was doing it the same way, but I did not lose weight on it. And I didn't have any data about what I was eating the first time versus what I was eating the second time. So I couldn't go back and replicate how I had done it the first time, even though I had gone through it. And so it didn't work for me at all the second time.
Well, and there are apps too. I know people can get overwhelmed with the idea of tracking calories or feel like it's a punishment. For us, it's so liberating. Like, I don't have to worry about, it's
goodness.
Like guessing your gas gauge. All right, well, knowing how much gas is in my tank is very limiting, man, and I don't feel free, man. I'm just going to cover it with black tape and then I'll just drive, and then when I feel like I'm low, it'll be fine. Like, it just is data for me. It's like a bumper car thing. I can make 50 analogies about why it's important. It just kind of keeps me on track. And guess what? When I don't track, my portions get bigger and bigger. And I forgot that I ate that chimichanga earlier.
And you bring up a good point. It's not just tracking, it's weighing and measuring and not just eyeballing like what you're eating, which I used to be like, oh, that's about a tablespoon. And then I would measure what I thought it was. And it was, it would be 3 tablespoons.
Yeah, it's amazing what I can heap up on a tablespoon tracker. And, and for those, we've done episodes too about starting to track your calories and how to sort of get that as part of your habit. There's also an app called 8, ATE, that's how you spell 8, that you take pictures of your food and then you can say, like, was it an impulse? Was it a snack that you just wanted?
Oh, it's so good. I didn't do this with this app, but it was figuring out what I was eating that was triggering me to eat too much later was so huge in my developing my plan and realizing that I had to stop eating carbs early in the day and eventually stop eating breakfast altogether. And it really, really ended up being the key to my success, just sort of sticking to those, high protein foods earlier in the day and not eating anything that was going to make me just want more sugar, more sugar, more sugar.
Well, and being able to go back, because the less I have to keep in my brain, like, it's amazing.
Yeah.
I wrote it down.
There's not a whole lot of space in my brain.
No, it's just with that monkey banging the cymbals. There's not much going on. But I can go back and say, gosh, the scale was up last week. I was so good. I feel like I did everything. And then I look and I go, oh gosh, well, I had alcohol almost every night because it was a vacation week. And I haven't had a salad in a month. And it all adds up, and I can look at that data and just go, oh, okay, you know what? I think I need to eat something green. That might help me out. And it's just being able to go back to that and then make decisions moving forward that's really helpful. And it is a process. At first, it did not feel fair. I felt put upon and overwhelmed. And there are some people, if you're listening to the podcast this long, then you know what we talk about. But there are people who say like, well, it's disordered to track your calories. It's disordered to track. Is it disordered to track your financial budget?
Yeah.
Is it disordered to track your gasoline? Is it disordered to track like...
And I don't know how else I would do it. And you know what? It may seem like this big, huge undertaking. It might be 6 minutes of my day.
Yeah.
Like it might be 6 minutes. And once I do it, one of my favorite things is to track a whole bunch of things I know I'm going to eat in the morning.
Yeah.
And then they're already in my bank, so to speak. And so it's like spending free money, only it's like eating free calories in a lot of ways. Like I've already tracked it, so I get to eat it and I don't even have to do anything. And it's already there. Well, and it works really well for me.
And not to be the bummer police, because, that's
bummer police, everybody.
But like, you know what would be really a lot harder, Donald? Is to track your insulin medication because of your diabetes.
Yeah.
Like, and your appointments at your physical therapist because you lost your leg because of diabetes.
Yeah, I know firsthand about getting a diabetes diagnosis, and it is not fun.
Learning Braille because you've gone blind from diabetes. Like,
yeah.
This actually happens. I know I try to shuffle in a little bit of the yucks with the hard information. We were on a path where Donald was going to be on diabetes medicine for the rest of his life, where he might actually lose a limb because he was just seeing what his body told him to do and eat the food he liked. YOLO, everybody. And it's so like our health matters to us. And in the past, we've talked about this before, it was a game. I wanted to get to a certain weight so that I could go back to eating an entire deep dish pizza. I wanted to get to a certain weight so that I could just go back to my old lifestyle. We are in a position now where we have taken all of this data, all of this information, and based on our lives right now as they are today, we're making accommodations to set us up for a better future. We want to age well. We want to be physically active. We want to feel good in our bodies and not be sick with disease. And we're doing everything that we can to help our future selves and to help our daughter too, so she doesn't have to wheel us both around in wheelchairs.
Yeah, I was
60.
on a path where I wasn't going to be able to like walk up a flight of stairs, let alone do anything else like that.
Yeah, we were going to have to buy like a pulley system to get ourselves up the stairs. We live on second floor.
And now we take 6 mile walks, and I am 51, and it doesn't even faze me to take a walk that long. I intentionally park on the 6th floor of the parking garage at work so that I can walk up the stairs with my full backpack. Like, this is the difference. And if we can do it, sitting around doing nothing all the time, if we can go from that to this, you can too, believe me.
Yeah. And over these 2 episodes, we've given a lot of different ideas and tips on how to not make mistakes. The important part of this is to not get overwhelmed with all of the different things that you're doing wrong. If you see that like, oh gosh, I've got to upheave everything, pick the low-hanging fruit. What's the one thing that you can start monitoring right now? What's, of any of the list, if you could do 50% of one of the things on the list, if you could reduce your consumption of sugar, if you can start tracking a meal a day, start slow, start where you are. Add some additional vegetables into your life. Like, we're not talking about monumental changes. The person that I was 5 years ago, all I could do was eat some frozen food, track it, and pout. Like, that was like
pouting burns calories.
It sure does. It takes more calories to frown than it does to smile.
It sure does.
But like, that's where I was 5 years ago. From there, okay, you know what? I can start adding a walk to our daughter's school and back. Okay, after that, I can start closing the kitchen at 8 p.m. It's small, sustainable baby steps over time. It adds up, and we're not the people that we were 5 years ago. And I really look forward to figuring out who we're going to be in 5 years from now. Like, we're not stuck in this one pattern of behavior. It has to do with season of life, work, family. Like, it all adds up. And we challenge you to push yourself a little bit harder because change takes work. It takes changing your current habits. If we can do it, we know that you can do it.
Yes, indeed. And thank you so much for listening. Another weight loss mistake people make is not listening to We Only Look Thin, and you are not making that mistake by listening.
Check it off the list.
Exactly. Exactly. Thank you so much for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, all of our episodes are available wherever you found this one. And you can also listen to them on our website at weonlylookthin.com.
Yeah, if for some reason it doesn't show up in your podcast app, which happens from time to time, glitch in the matrix, you can just go to our website, weonlylookthin.com, and find them all there.
Yeah, we have not missed posting an episode Sunday night / Monday morning in 3 years. We don't intend to start now.
Yeah. And if you want more information on our women's support group, Wolt Place, based on Facebook, you can go to our website there too and click on Join Our Support Group to find out more about that. We have 2 subscription options, a monthly option with a 3-day trial and a 3-month option with a 7-day trial to see if accountability is right for you.
Another weight loss mistake people make is not joining Wolt Place. And yet another weight loss mistake people make is not following us on social media. You can follow us at We Only Look Thin on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook.
Yep. And if you have questions, suggestions, or want to share a little bit about yourself, you can email us at weonlylookthin@gmail.com. It might take a little while to get back to you, but we do try to answer all of your questions. If you have suggestions on episodes that you would like us to cover, we got something to say about everything, don't we?
We sure do. And I promise I won't make this joke again, but I'm going to make it one more time. The final weight loss mistake people make is not going to Apple Podcasts and leaving us a 5-star rating and a review. So if you could please do that, it really helps us out. Not only does it boost our egos by you saying nice things about it, it also helps people find the show when they're looking on Apple Podcasts for other ratings and reviews. It boosts us in the search results. So we would really appreciate that.
So if you're still unsure about the difference between whole foods in the grocery store and entire foods in your mouth, just remember that Donald and I are an inspiration.
The information that you hear on this podcast is for informational purposes only. The hosts are not medical professionals. You should always consult with your doctor, nurse, or other certified health professional before beginning any diet or fitness program.